Hello and welcome to another inbox review. So today I'm looking at another big old Airfix kit. It's the Handley page Halifax. This one is going back quite a few years as well. First released by Airfix in the early 60s, 1961. This release was from about 2005. It was the last pre-Hornby era release, and Hornby released the Halifax about 5 or 6 years ago, 2014 I think with new decals. So it's been around a good while. It's quite a large box. On the side, some basic information. Kit number 06012. Information about the aircraft and the two decal versions. Paints required. Now, I don't believe this is the original artwork, but it's a typical RAF Bomber Command night bombing scene. Start by looking at the instructions sheet. So the instruction sheet is A4. First page, information about the aircraft, 5 languages. Page 2 is basic instructions, assembly icon instructions, typical Airfix. Then we have 21 different stages. Stage 1 is the interior cockpit assembly. 3 crew figures, very basic setup. This figure seems to be standing up. Quite an unusual position, so interesting to see what that's about. Section 2 is the Dorsal Turrish assembly. Section 3 is the tail gun assembly. You got 3 transparent parts which glue together, which might be a little problematic. So you have joins between transparent parts and so on. Section 4, you're assembling the 2 cockpit halves, joining in the gun turrets, tail wheel, cockpit assembly, interior windows, and also this crew figure here who you perch on a ledge on one of the fuselage halves. Interesting. Sections 5 to 10, you're assembling tailplanes and rudders, elevator controls. So, section 11, it's here joining the 2 wings and the tailplane to the fuselage, adding the cockpit glass, which is probably to the end. Sections 12 to 15 are the wheel bay doors, which you mount into the engine nacelles, or at least the underside of them. And section 16 and 17 then, the main undercarriage, which you don't have to glue in, so you can raise and lower. And indeed the main wheel bay doors also can be opened and closed if you so wish. Section 18 and 19, you're assembling the engine nacelles, propellers, exhausts and so on. And then section 20, adding the engines and engine nacelles to the wings. Section 21, it's mainly the nose cone and the bomb aimer bombardier, as the Americans call him, who is in this prone position right at the front, looking out. And that's actually it. You've got your two colour painting and decal plan for two versions. So, in terms of colour scheme, both are exactly the same, really. It's Bomber Command typical scheme, so RAF scheme. So dark green upper surfaces, matte black under surfaces. First version is for number 158 Squadron, March 1944. They have this really distinguishing feature, really, is the stripes on the tailplane. The second version, second option is an aircraft, also Bomber Command 1944, number 78 Squadron. But colour scheme exactly the same. So those are the construction plans. The decal sheet. So at this era it's not cartograph yet. Decals, though, relatively clear. The unit insignia or the aircraft marking is relatively legible. There's quite a matte finish in these, but I guess that's representative. That's accurate. I mean, it's Bomber Command, night bombing aircraft. Quite flat as well, so not a lot of backing film. So reasonably presentable. And now the parts. So again, bearing in mind this is a kit from 1961, it's quite typical of its era. So we have raised rivet detail all over. Typically no interior detail. So quite basic, really. I'm not sure what the fit on this kit is like, but it probably requires a bit of work, some cleaning up. I mean, it's relatively okay, but I mean, by modern standards, not up to the same level, really. These are the wings, and similarly a lot of raised rivet detail. The detail otherwise is not, again, not up to modern standards. It's really quite basic. There's a lot of flash, as you can see, on some of the control surfaces. There won't be any interior detail in the undercarriage wheel bays either, as usual. So again, typical Airfix kit for this era. Now it's quite a large sprue here, as you can see, with a lot of parts and all strung out. So I'll start with a propeller, and you can see it's not too bad, I suppose. A little bit of flash. There's the tail wheel, quite basic. Engine nacelles, there is some detail of the cylinders inside. Quite simple, though. The control surfaces there, of course, still. Similarly, you have a lot of rivet detail. And those are some of the guns, again, all quite basic. And then some of the crew figures. Not the worst. Could be worse. These turret gunners here. The detail on them is actually quite indistinct. So then you have this gentleman here. Appears to be waving. So, and a quite prominent pin ejector mark right on his abdomen. So, a bit of flash here and there, of course, as well on these parts. So, again, they're quite old. Again, another large sprue with a lot of parts. Same again, really. Rivet detail on these control surfaces. There's the undercarriage wheels. Quite basic, really. Not much to see on them. Now, finally, we have the transparencies. So you can see here, these parts are for the tail gun Turrish. Again, the fit would have to be quite good on those. They're very, very thick, so you probably are not going to see much through them. And here we have the nose cone, and also it's quite a thick part, a lot of distortion, so you see very little through that. Next to it is the dorsal Turrish canopy. It's quite similar, and then the main cockpit canopy, and you can just about see the framing on it. It's barely raised, but it's kind of etched out, so at least you have some guideline for painting. But again, it looks, the distortion through it is quite apparent, so you know, again, by modern standards, you would have the quality would be quite better. This, but I guess again, they're representative of their era. So that's the Airfix Handley page, Halifax. So typical vintage Airfix kit from the 1960s. Parts are a bit basic, not a lot of detail, but probably scope to make an interesting model if you have the time and the want to spend the effort. So thank you for watching, and see you in the next video.